Let's get back to oil. Crude topping $60 US today amid geopolitical risk. Our guest says that given current global uncertainty, people should not be underestimating hazards to supply, the risk that we will see significant disruption of oil flows. We're joined by Helima Croft, Global Head of Commodity Strategy at RBC Capital Markets. Always great to see you, Helima. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Do you think there's a little bit of complacency on the oil market about the threat to supplies?
Well, I think certainly at the end of the year, we had really discounted, or many market participants had discounted the risks of geopolitically driven supply disruptions. And what we're seeing now, I mean, part of the reason why oil is at the current levels that it's at is because of disruptions that we are seeing related to the Russia-Ukraine war, particularly disruptions related to key pipeline infrastructure like Kazakhstan's CPC pipeline affecting loadings. Now, there are other issues on Kazakh production as well, but certainly the ongoing Ukrainian attacks on Russian infrastructure, Russian pipelines, on tankers, is really starting to cause material disruptions in the market.
What about the Trump-Greenland saga? Of course, it's been called that. I guess the Icelanders invented the saga. But of course, that could cause economic disruption, which would tend to push down oil if tariffs are slapped on.
So funny you mentioned Iceland. I'm actually married to someone from Iceland, and I'm headed to Iceland tomorrow. But I think that has been a factor weighing on prices. And certainly we are going to be waiting for more details on the proposed NATO framework for Greenland. Certainly Denmark has rejected the idea that they are going to sell Greenland. So we really have to wait and see how this gets resolved. But I think Greenland's a really important point of conversation because certainly what President Trump has talked about since December is his Western Hemisphere strategy, the Dunroe Doctrine, or we call it the Monroe Doctrine 2.0. And Greenland is part of that. But also Venezuela has been really part of that. I mean, that has been one of the key factors behind the U.S. move to seize Nicolas Maduro and essentially take control of Venezuelan oil exports, is the idea that the United States is going to throw its weight around the region. And again, when it comes to oil, we've really seen that play out for Venezuela.
Could we just swing to Iran for a second? Because you guys note that a lot of Iranian oil shipments seem to be unaccounted for. It's not clear where they're all going.
Yes. Well, certainly we know that the lion's share of sanctioned Iranian barrels end up in China. They end up in the Chinese independent refiners known as teapot refiners. Now, there are some interesting exports from countries. I think we've talked about this before. Malaysia. Sometimes we look at the Malaysian exports and we say, are these really Malaysian barrels or are they Iranian barrels disguised as Malaysian barrels? There's been conversations previously about Iraqi exports. Are they all Iraqi barrels? Are there some Iranian barrels mixed in? Is there an effort to basically rename barrels to evade sanctions? But I think what's going to be interesting as we think about the Iran story, because we simply don't know where President Trump stands at the moment on intervention in Iran. We have deployed, the U.S. has deployed more military assets to the Middle East. There's some anticipation of a possible U.S. strike. What would that mean for the security of Middle East oil assets?
Could we just swing back to Russia? And you guys have prepared a map of Ukrainian attacks on Russian facilities or vessels, I think, in some cases, since 2025, the summer of last year, I believe.
Yes.
And are they actually disrupting Russision oil shipments significantly?
Well, that's why we brought up the issue of Kazakhstan and the disruptions that we're seeing at their biggest fields. And a lot of it is tied to the inability to move those exports through, critical facilities. And we have seen Ukrainian attacks on CPC terminals, on infrastructure. And so most notably right now, we're paying close attention to what's happening with those exports. But they have also been relentless, Ukrainians, in attacking Russian refineries. They've stepped up attacks on shadow fleet tankers. And at a certain point, the combination of existing sanctions on Russian energy, Ukrainian attacks on critical Russian energy infrastructure, the question is, will we start to see even more serious Russian supply disruptions? Because one of the Achilles heels of the Russian energy system is an actual lack of abundant storage. So some experts are saying at a certain point, the combination of these Ukrainian attacks and the storage shortfalls will mean that Russia will have to shut in more barrels.
Helima, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Helima Croft, Global Head of Commodity Strategy at RBC Capital Markets.